The first question I'm asking our former students is a question we often get asked. I bet you get asked sometimes too. Is why anthropology? What got you into anthropology in the first place?
I think once I got to university and I wasn't entirely sure what path I was going to take and what I wanted to major in, I decided I would take anthropology as my one of my courses for my undecided first year, and it just stuck. I did well. I enjoyed it. I find it interesting. I think it's fascinating, and it just was. It's just for me. I think you should do what you enjoy and what you do well at. And I think I did a range of things in first year and saw that that was one of the things I really enjoyed. So yeah, that's the story.
That's
When I arrived at Western, I wanted to be a doctor. So I started in the Faculty of Health Sciences, actually. I was studying health sciences, and the health sciences at Western is more social based, so social determinants of health. So I was learning about how culture, education, geography to a certain extent impacts people's health. And I've always been interested in that. I've always been a people person, very interested in how people are similar or different than I am and how I grew up. And to take it a little bit back, I was born and raised in Toronto. My parents are from East Africa, so I grew up in dual cultures, if you will, but also in a very multicultural city. So I was around people who were similar and different than I was in terms of what lunches they brought to school, what languages they spoke, how they dressed, and that. So my curiosity peaked at a very early age. And while I never knew what anthropology was, I wasn't able to study it in school. When I got to university and had to take certain courses for breadth requirements, I came across anthropology because I needed to add something to my health sciences degree that would allow me to think more holistically, which I was always very appreciative of. So I stumbled on Intro to Sociocultural Anthropology, and an aha moment just lit up in my brain, because a lot of what we were talking about at the time, and this was almost 10 years ago actually, resonated with me as someone who grew up in multiple cultures, as someone who needed to understand why people did things differently. So
it started back in high school. From when I was in public school up until I was about 16, I actually always wanted to be a marine biologist. That was my actual dream. But I just didn't have the math and the sciences. I just wasn't as strong in that kind of area. And so when high school, the end of high school started, and you start to think about what you want to do for school and what's realistic, I started taking classes in there was one class I took called Ancient Civilization. And then there was another class that was psychology, sociology, and anthropology that they offered. And from that, I discovered that I really liked the anthropology side of things, that part of the class. And so that combined with the ancient civilizations class and being really interested in archaeology and always having an interest in that growing up as well. And I think a lot of that interest too. Also, I was really lucky as a kid to have the opportunity to go overseas to visit family over in England and Ireland, and just getting to see different old sites and history and learn about all of these things. I think that always kind of interested me as well. So when I had these experiences in high school where I could take these courses, I realized that I'm okay, maybe if I can't go to the sciences route, let me try this anthropology, social sciences route. So I decided pretty quickly I was going into anthropology. I took the first year classes. I took a general first year, but in my mind, I was pretty sure that it was going to be anthropology I wanted to stick with and learn more about.
Yeah. For me, it was really about kind of a program that lets you look at different cultures, different ways of living, different ways of believing, understanding the world, and kind of digging a little bit deeper into kind of what the motivations are and how that affects people in their very real lives. And so that was one of the things that kind of drew me in. And then kind of stemming from that, some of the areas that I was really interested by were linked to maybe some things related to kind kind of organizational culture, how people in work or different kinds of organizations understand and create meaning from the jobs they're doing. So that was a little bit of what I focused on in grad school. But I really saw a very interesting practical application for what anthropology is, kind of going even beyond the academic side as well. So it was just kind of about being curious, learning more about the world. And what I really enjoyed about my program at Western was all the different courses I took. You kind of saw how this mindset could be applied almost to anything and anywhere, historically, but also to a lot of contemporary contexts. So for me, it was just a fascinating topic to get into, and I was really happy with that program.
But when I started taking anthropology, I didn't know that much about it. And what really attracted me to it was, in a way, I found it really refreshing how borderless, let's say, it is. How it, you could really take insights from a field like biology for primatology, or economics, political theory, history, philosophy, and tackle problems in a very broad sense. So for me, there was a lot there that it really triggered my inquisitive side, let's say. And I guess maybe I'm naturally attracted to complexity. And I really liked how it embraced complexity to tackle problems, and not distilling something down to a very basic maybe, or simple matter. But that was my main thing. So I actually ended up kind of switching to be not just primatology into a full cultural anthropology as well.
So I guess the diversity of the discipline drew me to anthropology. I like that Western offered courses in a range of anthropological fields, and I'd always been really interested in the study of people and society, and I thought anthropology was the perfect fit for that, of course. I like that each year I was able to take a broad range of classes, so covering everything from tourism to learning about how different people perceive the course of life from birth to death. So I just found that all very interesting, and anthropology gave me an outlet to explore many different interests.
I was really interested in learning about different, not only cultures, but perspectives. I like learning about, the big ideas and the big theories and stuff, but also smaller histories that no one really hears about. Like especially indigenous history is really big for me because I'm Inuit. And I've been, since being at Western, when I was there, I focused a lot of my own writing on exploring how to write about culture from like my own unique perspective, and using my own voice and my eyes and stuff, and not being afraid to do that. And it was really great because anthropology encouraged that, whereas in other.
So I kind of got there in a weird way. I had my own little journey in my undergrad. So I came to Western actually in science, really wanted to be an evolutionary biologist. And then realized to do that, you have to do chemistry, and I hate chemistry. So I was like, how can I do this like evolutionary biology without having to do chemistry? And then I found anthropology, but more physical anthropology. So I started to do that in my second year. And then to do that, I had to take courses in sociocultural anthropology, which I found out that I liked better. So it's kind of this like following my interest trajectory of wanting to talk about real issues that I see in my life every day, and wanting to go kind of go into a field where I can talk about things that I have a daily interest in, if that makes sense, of like kind of everyday life, where I wasn't getting that as much in my like hard science, as I call it, disciplines, and being able to engage with people who aren't in academia about the things that I'm interested in.
Yes, I'd always had an interest in like ancient civilizations and archaeology. And when I was actually in high school, my dad gave me a book on evolution, like hominid evolution, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I got super sucked into it. I was a real science person. And when I went to my guidance counselor in grade 12, they asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be an archaeologist. They're like, that's not a job. Nobody does that. And I was like, okay, then I'll be a doctor. So I actually came to Western in health science, and I had to take an elective that was either, I think, anthropsych or soc. And my dad said, you know, you've always been into archaeology, like, why don't you try the anthro course? And I had Dr. Spence for the first year anthro. And I was like, no, you guys, this guy's like Indiana Jones. He goes to Mexico, he looks at skulls, he's really, really cool. You can do it as a job. So it kind of brought me back to what was always my interest, but I've been told you couldn't do. Yeah. And frankly, my least favorite course was health science. So I was like, why am I in a program that I'm not enjoying when I could be doing something that I actually think is really, really interesting? Yeah. So I actually started really hard into the archaeology. And then I had a class with Ian, and I was like, okay, this primatology thing is really, really neat. Yeah. And then you sucked me into sociocultural with Madagascar. So then we went to Madagascar, and I was like, no, this is the best. Like, this is what I want to do. And I really liked, I'd spent all my high school years really in science, and the human aspect of anthropology combined with like the science that was in archaeology and bioarch and stuff like that really just hit me, because I felt the human aspect was always missing from what I was doing with just like the pure bio stuff. And I don't know, it sucked me in.
I started out in science and computer science. That was my goal. And I took an elective first year anthropology, and I kind of got really enthralled with it because I've always been really interested in how humans interact with each other and their environments. And yeah, so I ended up just deciding, well, why don't I just do it as a major as well? So I added that on. And yeah.
So was that an unusual double major? Do you know of others who had done that?
No, I don't think I ever met anybody. People would always be like, wow, that's so unique. So yeah. Interesting.